Ethan Granger didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply closed the letter from the HOA, slid it into the desk drawer, and walked to the window. Beyond the rolling green hills lay a quiet, shimmering reservoir, a body of water his grandfather had built with his own hands. The notice claimed the land was no longer his, that 35 homes of Willowbrook Estates now sat where his cattle once grazed. The HOA called it a community improvement project. Ethan called it theft, but they didn't know the truth. Beneath that lake, hidden behind decades of silt and silence, was a dam still under his control. A dam protected by water, rights older than the HOA itself. And if he opened it, every one of their shiny new homes would face the consequences of building where they didn't belong. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan touched the worn metal key hanging around his neck, the key to the control house. You wanted waterfront property. He whispered to the darkening hills, "You're about to get it." Before the HOA came, life on the Granger land was quiet and deliberate. Ethan had returned from 8 years in the Army Corps of Engineers to run the property after his father's stroke. The land was more than soil and fence posts. It was the heartbeat of his family. His grandfather, a stubborn man with a knack for engineering, had built the dam in 1964, not for profit, but to ensure water during the brutal Texas droughts. It fed the creek that ran through town, kept farms alive, and gave children a place to swim in summer. Ethan's childhood smelled like fresh hay, engine oil, and cedar. He could still hear the rhythmic slap of water against the dock as he fished with his dad at dawn. Every ridge and trail was mapped in his memory. The idea that a neighborhood association, a group of people who'd never set foot on the property until a year ago, could claim it as their own wasn't just offensive. It was personal, but the fight didn't start with the letter. It started the day he saw the survey stakes hammering into his soil, and from that moment, the clock had been ticking toward a reckoning. The first time Ethan realized something was wrong, he'd been repairing the east pasture fence. By midday, the hum of a diesel engine echoed across the fields. He looked up to see a convoy of concrete trucks rumbling through the old cattle gate. Following them was a white golf cart with a gold emblem on the front, Willowbrook Estates HOA. Behind the wheel sat Maggie Thornwell, a woman in designer sunglasses who wore her authority like a crown. "Mr. Granger," she called, her voice as sweet as syrup and just as sticky. "Good news, this land is now part of our expansion. 35 beautiful new homes right here. You'll love the sense of community." Ethan stared, jaw tight. "This is my property," he said. "Oh, honey," Maggie replied, tapping her manicured nails on the steering wheel. "According to our records, your family abandoned this section decades ago. We're just making use of it." By sunset, the trucks had poured the first foundations. Dust hung in the air like smoke. Ethan knew then this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was an invasion. For a few weeks, Ethan tried to fight it through polite conversation, letters, calls to the county office, but the HOA was quick, confident, and relentless. They waived papers he'd never seen before, filed permits overnight, and acted like they were doing the world a favor. The breaking point came in late August. Ethan walked down to the creek one morning to find it bone dry. Following the empty bed upstream, he discovered the cause. The HOA had rerouted the flow into their own artificial ponds and irrigation systems for aesthetic purposes. The dam's reservoir was shrinking by the day. Algae crept across the surface where clear water used to shimmer. Fish floated lifeless near the shore. The air smelled faintly of rot. That night, Ethan sat on the dock, staring at the reflection of the moon. He thought of his grandfather, who had once told him, "Water is power, son, and power is only useful if you know when to use it." The HOA had crossed the line. Now they weren't just stealing land, they were erasing his family's legacy. Ethan began digging through county archives. He spent hours in a dusty courthouse basement, flipping through brittle maps and handwritten ledgers. That's when he found it, the original 1923 water rights deed. The document clearly stated that the Granger family had perpetual control over the dam and all water flow from it. The rights were so old they predated the subdivision's existence by nearly half a century. Armed with this knowledge, Ethan started planning. He repaired the dam's control mechanisms, greased the rusted gears, and tested the spillway gates in secret at night. He studied topographic maps, calculating exactly where the released water would flow. He wasn't looking to destroy just to restore the creek's original path, but if that happened to leave the HOA waterfront dream homes sitting in several feet of water, that was just physics. Word must have gotten back to the HOA that Ethan was digging into records, because their tactics escalated fast. County inspectors appeared unannounced, citing him for imaginary code violations. HOA board members took photos over his fences, spreading rumors about unsafe conditions. Maggie herself showed up at his door one Saturday, flanked by 2 board members. "Ethan, let's be reasonable," she cooed. "Sign over the section and we'll compensate you." Generously. Ethan's silence was answer enough. That week, the HOA newsletter painted him as a bitter recluse, hindering community growth. But Ethan noticed something in the reactions of a few longtime locals. Not everyone was on the HOA side. Some remembered the old creek. Some remembered his grandfather's generosity during drought years. Ethan began knocking on doors. Mrs. Chen, now in her 70s, still had faded photos of her family's garden in 1940, lush from the creek's flow. Miguel Santos' family had irrigated their farm from the dam since 1887. Slowly, allies emerged: farmers, environmental advocates, and even a retired county surveyor who confirmed the HOA land grab was built on false claims. They signed affidavits, shared maps, and quietly offered their support. Together, they formed a coalition, Friends of Willow Creek. Their goal was simple: restore the water, restore the land. Storm clouds rolled over the hills the night Ethan decided it was time. The reservoir was full from weeks of rain. He'd inspected every gear, every bolt of the dam's old spillway. At dawn, with the key in his hand and his allies watching from a safe distance, Ethan unlocked the control house. The air inside smelled of damp stone and machine oil. He placed both hands on the main valve wheel and began to turn. The first groan of metal echoed like thunder. Water surged through the gates, white and wild, reclaiming the creek bed. Downstream, the HOA manicured lawns and ornamental ponds overflowed. The waterfront homes were now exactly that. And as the sun broke over the hills, Ethan stepped outside into the cool morning air, the roar of the restored creek in his ears. He didn't smile, but he also didn't look back.